Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Good amount to get through today. A little bit of news and notes, injury front and whatnot. I want to go over a little bit more of the schematic side. Sort of, we went through here are the players for Cleveland. Now I want to know sort of the identity of Cleveland. How do they choose or try to play football, which is tough because that's one of the complaints about Cleveland is that they lack identity, but we'll do our best. And then I want to, I guess we'll say in the third segment, although I doubt I'll be that slick in actually making it that smooth, but I do want to go through the games for today, not as in-depth as in the past, obviously, because we don't have time, but at least highlighting games that matter, games that we should be watching, who we should be rooting for, and why, and all that stuff. And then, we'll see about me giving my thoughts on who wins and why and all that kind of stuff. So why don't we start on the injury front? Tucker Kraft reportedly will play, and I have mixed emotions on that. Obviously, I'm happy. Tucker Kraft being in the game helps our chances of winning the game, winning it by more point, whatever, right? It's any kind of upset type of a thing just got lessened with Tucker Kraft on the field. The thing that I slightly would be concerned about is, if he has a lingering issue, I don't want it to get aggravated. I don't want him to be out for a longer period of time. If we need to sit him to get him back fully healthy for next week, that would be my preference. But I understand. I mean, we're out here trying to win football games. We can't be babying everybody. A lot of people are banged up, and you got to push through it. And there has to be that line that you draw between, if you're good enough to go, you got to fight through it. And who do we sit? So I'm glad that it's minor enough that they're comfortable letting him play, and I hope that he can. He might be on a little bit of a pitch count, but hopeful that he gets through the game feeling good and can continue progressing in that direction after this week. Jayden Reed was officially put on IR. This just came across the wire for me. A lot of people were wondering why he hasn't been put on IR yet, and generally the question that was returned is that because they don't need to. They don't need that roster spot. So it's possible that they did this because they've identified somebody to bring in. Maybe they have brought somebody else in. We'll have to see, as far as maybe elevating somebody and then bringing somebody in for the practice squad, or however they're going to do that, I don't know. I haven't seen that news yet, but that would be my expectation is you put them on IR, free up a spot, and you can, elevate somebody. Bears, actually, this just coming across for me also, Bears just officially did that with Jalen Johnson, their corner as well. Obviously a massive blow for Chicago. They just paid him some good money. He is their top corner. I don't know how much it actually matters, but, whatever. Probably for similar reasons, right? You get to Saturday, now is the time when you're going to need to have that spot available or whatever. I don't know. And actually, to be fair, I don't think they were at 53 when they put him on IR, so I think they actually might have 2 spots open right now. So we'll see what they do, if anything. Remember, the game day roster is 48. So if they're at 51, as far as the total 53-man roster, it may not be that big of a deal. But you would think they'd want to be at 53. I don't know. I don't freaking know. Aaron Banks, we'd already heard, is full go. Zane Anderson is good to go. He was full participant all week. Nate Hobbs looks clear to go. Josh Jacobs is good to go. He was limited with an ankle injury all week. Jordan Love, we heard about his left thumb. He's still on the injury report, but we had heard that it was not wrapped, and he was a full participant all week, so obviously he's fine. Bo Melton had a shoulder thing. He was limited for Wednesday, Thursday, full on Friday. He should be good to go. Jayden Reed, obviously out. He was just placed on IR. So the 2 questionables were Tucker Kraft and Zach Tom, and we just heard that Tucker is going to play. So that was pretty big and actually pretty surprising because he actually was fine on Wednesday, limited on Thursday, didn't practice on Friday. So it just felt like we're not going in a super great direction. At least I would have assumed it was going to be a game time decision, just like with Zach Tom. But again, the report came out as it was. Zach Tom is still questionable. I don't think he's going to play. They're calling it a game time decision. And I think they probably mean it. I'd mentioned this before. That there's probably a part of them that's like, I mean, we'll see what happens. But I also think it's probably some gamesmanship. I think they are quite sure Anthony Belton is going to start. This is just me speculating. I have no idea, obviously, the status of his injury, but it doesn't sound great. He says he's still in pain. And so I think they have a really good idea. Anthony Belton is probably going to be starting at right tackle. I don't even know where they're at with that right now. They've been cycling that. But by doing this, it causes some potential conflict with Cleveland in terms of either you create two plans, one with Zach Tom and one without, or you just say we're going to line up here no matter what. And what here means, I don't know. That could be our left tackle, could be our right tackle. I don't know how big of a deal it is to switch that, just to be like, whatever, he's not playing, we'll just put him on the other side. For the Cleveland Browns, Corey Bojorquez, the punter, is good to go. Again, though, he's got apparently a right ankle injury, so I don't know if that's maybe going to... It's probably not great, as hard as they kick frickin' footballs, you know what I mean? Malik Collins was just rest. Grant Delpit, good to go with a back injury. Tevin Jenkins popped up on the injury report on Friday, and remember, he was kind of important because there's a question about whether he might need to step up and play if Joel Bitonio can't go. So he just popped up on Friday. He's good to go for the game, but again, a shoulder injury pops up on Friday is not the greatest thing in the world. Denzel Ward had a shoulder injury and cramping. He was full participant all week and is good to go. Mike Hall Jr., defensive tackle, he is out in this game, and then there's 4 questionables. Joel Bitonio, DeAndre Carter, Jack Conklin, and Andre Smith, who popped up last minute. It was crazy. I was talking about how bad of a kicker he was, and we went through the whole thing, and I ended the podcast, and it was 2 seconds later I see that he just popped up on the injury report, and my first thought was, crap, I want that guy kicking. Like, don't go get an emergency kicker. I don't need somebody that can actually kick out there. But the guy that's really struggled this year, probably the worst kicker out in the league right now, this Andre Smith fellow, has a left calf injury, which is, I mean, assuming they're not going out and getting a new kicker, it just makes a bad situation worse for Cleveland as far as the kicking goes. As for the guys that are questionable, Joel Bitonio, he described it as having his old man back. His back has just been locking up on him. It's troubled him periodically throughout his career. He did say it has gotten a little bit better since flaring up, but he didn't practice all week. He was out all week, which is a really bad sign, especially for a guy who's got a back issue like that where things kind of flare up. Even if he plays, it's going to be tough for him to make it through the game. And so again, if Bitonio doesn't go, which is a massive blow for Cleveland, this offensive line, as we talked about, that's already not good. One of the few relative bright spots, him not being there isn't great. And then you've got potentially Tevin Jenkins stepping into that spot. He's a good football player, but has just been plagued by injuries. Well, he pops up on the injury report. So, and then the other thing is, I believe the other option for the left guard spot to fill in for Joel Bitonio, if it's not Tevin Jenkins, is the backup right tackle. The backup right tackle might need to play right tackle if Jack Conklin doesn't play. That's Cornelius Lucas is the guy. So, I mean, if Cornelius Lucas has to play left guard, then KT Leviston would have to fill in at right tackle. I mean, this is the worst case scenario if they lose Tevin Jenkins and Bitonio and Jack Conklin. That'd be rough. Conklin seems like he would be the guy that you would expect to play because he was at least limited, so he was practicing. But, I mean, he was listed as week to week. He was 50-50 last week to suit up, and he did not. I would lean toward he's going to play, but, we'll see how it goes. And as for Bitonio, it's kind of the opposite thing. I mean, he looks real bad, but Bitonio has a track record of fighting through some stuff. Kind of Iron Man kind of mentality. He's the leader of the team and everything, so we will see. As for the kicker, it looks like he's a full go, but again, it's a rough situation. He is listed as questionable, but from everything I can see, he is going to be kicking, so they're not going to be bringing in an emergency relief guy, so I think that's good news for us, to be completely honest. This guy has really, really struggled. Not to say he won't have a great game, but probably off to the roughest start of anybody so far, and now has popped up with a little bit of a injury. All right, so I think that's it with the injury stuff. Why don't we just take a break here? We'll do second segment, looking at some schematics for the Cleveland Browns. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Cleveland Browns. First thing I want to clear up, I'm not sure if I said it, but I think I did. I had mentioned how their head coach comes from the same tree as Matt LaFleur and all that kind of stuff over with Sean McVay. If I said that, correction. I was thinking of Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, not the Cleveland Browns. I was looking at it, and I was like, wait a minute. Something's not right. And I was like, what, was he the last head coach? I was like, no, that was Freddie Kitchens. It's like, that's not who I was thinking of. Thought maybe it was the offensive coordinator. Looked at that. Van Pelt. No, that's not him. I was like, wait a minute. And go look. Zach Taylor. I was like, that's the frickin' guy I was thinking of. Dang it. However, for all intents and purposes, relatively similar. The coaching trees are not in line in that there's overlap with Matt LaFleur. However, Kevin Stefanski comes from the Kubiak tree. He was with the Minnesota Vikings for many years, 14 years, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, starting off as assistant to the head coach in 2006 through 2008. We won't go through his whole thing, but that whole span, all the way through 2019 when he became the offensive coordinator and then got hired away. But the point is, as we go through the sort of offensive philosophy, you'll see that it's similar, especially to what Matt LaFleur kind of was. There's still quite a few similarities, but we've, at least in the run game, seemed to become more of a power gap running team than a zone team. But other than that, a lot of similarities. You hear things about, being multiple. They run wide zone schemes out of 12 personnel to try to marry the run and the pass game, all that kind of stuff. So that is sort of the core offensive philosophy of Kevin Stefanski. And what's interesting about it is that they actually last year really got away from that. They tried to build an offense centered around Deshaun Watson. So we're going shotgun, spread the offense out, all that kind of stuff. And it was a complete disaster, and the guy's hurt again. And so they kind of said, all right, screw this. We're going back under center. We're going back to 12 personnel. We're going to try to bully people with our offensive line and our heavy formations, and we're going to run play action off of that. And so they promoted from within to fill the offensive coordinator spot. And the idea is we can win with this quarterback that we have, Flacco, because ultimately we believe in our system. And I think if you're a Browns fan, there's not a ton to get super excited about, but maybe that's the silver lining, at least for 2025, is that, this is a course correction. We've got several new pieces we're working through. New quarterback, Fannon's new, the running back is new, and he didn't even start week 1, so he's kind of getting acclimated and all that. Stefanski also, at one point last year, had given up play calling duties, so he is going to be resuming that, or has resumed that in 2025. So it is just a full recommitment. So again, the main core philosophy here is the marriage of the run and the pass under center zone runs with layering play action passes over that. So as far as their run game is concerned, they are more of a wide zone kind of an offense. Again, that was similar to what we were doing a lot more. I think we're kind of slowly phasing away from that, but it's something that we are very familiar with. 46.9%, I believe, of their runs are wide zone. In fact, there was a quote from Joel Bitonio. He said something to the effect of, back in 2024, I think I pulled in the run game maybe 10 times as compared to doing it about 8 times in a game. Play action, this has historically been the bread and butter of the Stefanski offense. However, down from being a top 10 team, they're using it about 18% of dropbacks in 2025. The reason? A complete lack of run threat. So one of the biggest issues they're having right now, number one, is if you're going to be we're going to come out in big, heavy 12 personnel and we're going to run the ball down your throat and then marry play action off of that. If you get down big, and this is where for Green Bay, you can look at it and say the old adage, best defense is a good offense. If you get up on Cleveland, they're going to have to get away from that. And so I had seen a stat we'll stay away from the specifics, but it was something to the effect of, even though they're still running 12 personnel at a very high rate, in other words, even when they're down, they're not breaking from that 12 personnel, they're passing at an exceedingly high rate out of 12 personnel. And so they're trying to threaten you with the run while teams who are up by 14, 17, whatever points are looking at you and going, okay, go ahead and run. I don't give a crap. I also don't believe you. So again, the positive for Browns fans is, hey, you know, that we're just starting to get this all back together and all that. The negative is that they just don't have the horses right now. The offensive line is the core. I mean, you could say that about just about any team, but when this is your kind of a deal, you start with the trenches, you start with the offensive line. You need to be able to bully people. And right now they're working with one of the worst offensive lines in football that's really banged up. Even if the guys end up coming back, Bitonio and whatnot, if they end up playing, they're going to be playing hurt. And even if they're, you know, even at full strength, it's just not a very good offensive line. So the idea of we're going to bully you and we're going to throw it over your head, I mean, you're not going to bully me, and you got a 40-year-old standing in the pocket throwing to guys with frickin' butterfingers. Maybe that Fannin guy's a stud, I don't know, but it's not looking great. The other obvious issue is that even if you're saying, well, we'll get there, this is one of, if not the oldest teams in football. You're not going to get anywhere. You have to rebuild everything. You have to entirely rebuild this offensive line. You've got patchwork wide receivers. You need to get out there and find some receivers. You need a quarterback. I mean, you know, whatever. They currently are very low in terms of their usage of 11 personnel. They rank 25th, running out of it just 44% of the time. Extremely heavy in 12 personnel, 49% of the time, which is the fifth highest. The issue, though, and this is just where the whole identity crisis for the Browns thing comes in. They run 12 personnel more than just about anybody else. The problem? They have the league worst EPA out of 12 personnel in the league. So when your identity is also the thing that's crippling you, it's not a good thing. Now again, maybe they continue to improve as time goes on, but it's looking bleak right now. Joe Flacco, also a problem. Obviously, he's not a long-term solution, and Stefanski's trying to at least pretend that they're optimistic that they can make it work with Flacco. We just need a guy that can run the system, you know, that whole thing. The problem, obviously, is that he's 40 years old. His arm, obviously, is not going to be at its peak, and his legs are just non-existent. His passer rating under pressure right now is a league-low 23.5. So, you know, it's one of those things where we can't make it work until we fix this, and, you know, we can't fix that because X, Y, and Z. You know, and again, it starts with the offensive line. This isn't going to work if we can't protect the quarterback. Well, you're not going to be able to protect the quarterback with that offensive line. It also is hard to protect the quarterback when you don't have a run threat. And we don't have a run threat because of the offensive line. Even if you like Quinshon Judkins, the problem is you need an offensive line to block for him. Now, we'll see if Judkins comes in and is a freak. This is his second game as a runner. But right now, and we went through all the stats and all that, the run game is nowhere near where it needs to be. It is not a threat. And again, without a credible run, the play action ends up being neutered, and your entire offensive identity is just in the toilet. They have a 27.6% third down conversion rate, which ranks 27th. Part of the issue, it's hard to convert third downs when you're in third and longs. It's hard to not be in third and longs if you don't have a credible run game or anything else working. They also are supremely lacking in explosive plays. The play action deep threat is there in theory, right? Again, when everything's working, it all makes sense. I mean, it makes sense on the whiteboard. It makes sense in Stefanski's head, but you got to be able to connect all the pieces. You have to have a run threat. You have to have an offensive line to block so that you can run the ball, so that you have a run threat, so that you can run play action effectively, so that you can actually get people down the field and have a quarterback not under complete duress, so that your quarterback can throw hopefully very far, very accurately down the field to a guy that's able to run open and catch the ball. There's a lot of things, a lot of boxes that need to be checked that right now are shaky. Situationally, early downs, obviously, they're running a lot of heavy inside zone, very predictable and low efficiency so far. In other words, they have an identity and they're playing to it. The problem is, number one, you're not good at it. And number two, you're very predictable. You're trying to do the whole, yeah, you can know what we do, but try to stop us thing without the freaking horses to do it. And I'm not trying to like talk crap here to where it's like, if the Browns do it successfully, it's like, oh yeah, now what? I'm just explaining what has happened through 2 weeks. This is not trash talk. This is just the unfortunate situation the Browns are in as of right this moment. The organization has put themselves in a terrible situation. It's probably going to take them a long time to get out of it. The offensive philosophy does work, and I have no doubt that Stefanski is a creative offensive mind and all that stuff. The issue is just, can anybody make this offense, these pieces, can you make this work? You can't help but feel like you need a different kind of creativity as opposed to this sort of brutish, we're going to line up and smash you in the mouth thing, because I don't think you have the guys with the ability to do that. So right now, the reality that's staring the Browns and the Browns fans and all that in the face is that you have an offense with an aging quarterback, a crumbling offensive line, the failed execution in their core philosophy, and very predictable tendencies. The identity crisis label comes from the fact that Stefanski has an identity. He has a message to the team. This is who we are. This is what we do. But he doesn't have the team to execute it. And so it's a disaster. I'm not going to dabble too much into Cleveland Browns territory in terms of, the coaching staff and should he be fired or all that kind of stuff. But I will say, I think this thing was DOA. I don't know how you make this work, period. But the idea that you're going to run this sort of smash mouth, offense with this team, I don't know how you're going to do that. And so from a defensive standpoint, one of the obvious benefits that we've had is there was an expectation that the run defense was going to fall apart, and that hasn't happened. And so Hafley has what every defensive coordinator wants. Maybe that's not entirely true, but one of the benefits that Hafley certainly wants, that a lot of guys want, is the ability to rush 4 and win. Titans put Tavondre Sweat on IR. Oh, that's crazy. Didn't last super long. If they're able to shut down the run with 4 and pressure with 4, it's kind of game over. Pending a complete offensive collapse by the Packers, it's just game over. And that's kind of the case in general. And we've seen that from the offensive standpoint. We've seen that against teams, when we played Tampa back in the day, or Philly or whatever, these teams with just dominant defensive lines, if they can whoop you with 4, if you can't protect your quarterback when they're only bringing 4, if you can't run when they're only bringing 4, you're already dead. And so that needs to be the thing that the Packers come out with, is to get real strong up front and say, go ahead and run, and you smash these guys in the mouth. They want to bully you. You need to go out and bully them and prove to them immediately this isn't going to work. You need to demoralize them. Because again, this whole offensive philosophy is essentially based on bravado, which a lot of these are. Packers do the same thing. A lot of teams do. Philly does that. It's all just this identity of we're going to be strong. The Lions do that. But the Browns probably know where they stand, and it's not going to take very long. But if you allow some big runs, now they got some momentum. Now the play action can start to slip in. Now, you know what I mean? Don't let that happen. Let the boys hunt. Linebackers need to be on their game because the boys are getting after the quarterback. And if you guys can swarm to the ball carrier and get the ball carrier down on runs, and Flacco is on his back the whole game, it is essentially game over, and we don't really even need to talk about our offense versus their defense. It's over. Kick a field goal and it's over. That's not literal, obviously, but this is their biggest weakness and our biggest strength, which is weird to say as a Packer fan, but our defense, I would say right now, is ahead of our offense. And that's the same thing for them. You have to suffocate that offense immediately. You will not run on us, and if you try to pass, that quarterback ain't going to last. Get your boys in the back warming up those arms. And so ultimately, if we could summarize or maybe broaden out the game plan just a touch more, they want to run early. Good. We want you to run early, because if we can stop you, what does that mean? We force you into 3rd and long. Beautiful. I want you to come out in your heavy sets. I want you to try to run it down our throat. If we can stop you for 1 to 2 yards or a stop in the backfield or whatever, we're setting up situations for that 3rd and long. And that is the last thing the Browns want against this defense. All right, flipping over to the defense, we got Jim Schwartz again. This guy will not go away. He's been a scary and potent defensive coordinator for quite a while. He's got the Browns running out of a base 4-3 attack front. Packers are now in a 4-3, so we're a little bit more familiar with it, but it's very similar. You've got your guys shooting gaps. You're not doing this whole, the defensive linemen kind of control the gaps. We're trying to penetrate. So very similar to what we've got in Green Bay with attacking defense. The defensive line attacks. The linebackers play downhill fast. Also similar to the Packers, generally speaking, trying to win with 4. Myles Garrett obviously helps with that. We can, if you can win with 4, now you got more guys that can play back in coverage. So theoretically, it's max pressure with minimal blitz. Again, that's kind of the gold standard. Some guys like to throw in the blitzes. Buffalo likes to send guys and do all these exotic things for fun, but I think a lot of defensive coordinators, if I can just bring 4, and we'll show more than 4, but in general, I just want 4 coming. And if you can win with that, my goodness. Again, even when it comes to the run as well as the pass, penetration is the name of the game. They want tackles for a loss, not stalemates. This is similar to what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot more attacking and tackles for a loss in the backfield, especially with Edger and Cooper, but it's because there's more of that downhill attacking behind the line of scrimmage philosophy, as opposed to in the past with Pettin and Barry and those kinds of guys where it's sort of a hold the line, and then so the running back is almost guaranteed to at least get to the line, right? And usually they push through it, and your guy grabs him with one arm, and you drag him down for a 3-4 yard carry. None of that bull crap. Not in Green Bay, and Schwartz is the same way. Screw that. We're getting downhill, and we're gonna attack into the backfield. They do run a lot of wide 9, just getting guys out wide. They're trying to counter some of that wide zone type of stuff. The Packers don't do that as much, like I said, as they used to, so I don't know if that's still going to be a part of their pass rush philosophy, getting guys out wide like Myles Garrett, or if that's more of a specific run thing, but they do tend to do that a lot. Again, bottom 5 in blitzing. They really just don't want to do it. Schwartz doesn't want to do it. Although, again, very similar to what we do, they will mug guys up. So linebackers will mug for the sake of numbers, right? Once you do that, once you put these guys on the line and show blitz, now the offensive line has to do, their man coverage or their assignments or whatever. You're trying to get up inside of their head, these simulated pressures. Now, if you get in 3rd and long, you might see Schwartz send some people. You might get 5 or 6 pass rushers in those situations. Generally, though, they're going to stick to the 4-man. Again, very similar to Hafley. Schwartz likes to run more cover 1, cover 3, middle field close type of defense. And they do that with the aggressive press corners. Now, this is what Hafley wants to do, but again, we kind of have to get away from that because we don't have the corners to run it. I can't speak to the efficacy of the Browns corners and how they're doing. I mean, the defense seems to be doing, well, it's hard to say considering how many points they give up, and the run defense seems to be more potent than the pass defense. But that's at least the identity they're trying to convey. So, again, Schwartz and Hafley, just based on the research that I've done, seem very similar in terms of philosophy and what they want to do. Now, generally speaking, when it comes to man defense, obviously there are going to be some weaknesses. Not just in terms of man beaters with route running or whatever, but keep an eye on, for example, Jordan Love's mobility. It's one of the dangers of having your corners turn their back. You got to watch out for Myles Garrett, obviously, but if there's an opening, let's say, to the opposite side of where Myles Garrett is, you could see possibly Jordan Love take off and get a bunch of yards. There's also opportunities in the quick game. You flip it out to the running back, again, with the guy's backs turned, unless the linebackers can get there in time. If you can beat that linebacker, you might be able to get up the field with a little bit of space. Also something to keep in mind, and again, we'll see, but this is sort of that, I believe, one of the first tests of sort of that press man, aggressive style of defense that the Packers struggled with last year. This is also one of the things Matthew Golden was brought in to help defeat. If they're going to try to man up Matthew Golden, you send him on a crossing route, you put him in a bunch, you try to get that man free. You do it quick, and you get the ball out of your hand quick, and you just drive the ball down the field. So, make no mistake about it, you got a real talented defensive line coach and some players that are playing at a pretty high level. Again, I don't know if that's sustained. You've got some rookies and some young guys that are maybe playing above they're punching above their weight a little bit, With rookies, who knows? They might just be studs. But some of the other guys, maybe it's just one of those things where the defense is coming together and they're just going to play their best years. Or, again, some of it's a little bit fake, and we'll see that. But I wouldn't underestimate the defense as a whole. As much as we can have high expectations for our defense running roughshod over their offense, we might need to be a little patient with our offense against their defense. Maybe not. Maybe they just push right through them. But we've had issues running the ball. This is a very difficult team to run the ball against, and so I would assume that's going to force us into being a little bit one-dimensional, right? Just like I said with them, if you can't run, you force them into 3rd and long, and that's just like for Halfley, it's his playground. That is Schwartz's playground. He wants to unleash his dogs. He wants to get Myles Garrett after Jordan Love. And so the complication is going to be, how do we get out of that? How do we get ourselves into 3rd and shorts? How do we attack and get them to back off and maybe get us a little breathing room to run the ball? Or how do we just run the ball effectively against this unit? I have no doubt the Packers have the horses to get over that hump. But again, it's not the easiest. It's not automatic. This is going to take some work. It's going to take some effort. It's going to take a showing. Jordan Love's going to have to play at a high level. And one of the concerns is, Jordan under pressure sometimes can get a little panicky. That's going to be an issue in this game where there might need to be some quick decisions and all that kind of stuff. One of the benefits might be is maybe the yards per attempt come down. I know everybody loves that. It just scares the crap out of me. Let's get some high completion, high percentage throws. 10 yards is fine with me. I love 10 yards. Doesn't have to be a 50-yard play every single time. Kiran Amagaji also placed on IR for the Bears. Look at that. That's not great for them. All right, we're gonna call that good on the overview for the Cleveland Browns. We'll take a break. We'll come back and take a look at some of the games coming up. All righty, we got a clash of two big NFC teams here. We got the Philadelphia Eagles as well as the LA Rams. They're both 2-0. They're both NFC powerhouses. Again, one of the benefits of these types of games, somebody has to lose. And assuming we beat the Browns, that's good for us. It just puts us ahead of them. Rams 2-0, first in the NFC West. Very efficient, very potent passing offense. I think the concern right now for the Rams would be first of all, slow starts, which are things you can't do against somebody like the Philadelphia Eagles. The other might be just the quality of the opponents. I don't think anyone necessarily thinks Houston is a great team at this point. They beat them, and barely. It was 14-9. And then they did pummel Tennessee the next week, but it's Tennessee. So, they're going to have to step up in a big way this time against the Philadelphia Eagles, who are a little bit more battle-tested. They're at home, coming off a Super Bowl, 2-0, top of the NFC East. They're also a very different component than the Rams. The Rams are more of a high-flying, passing offense. The Eagles, obviously, much more ground and pound, run game, Saquon Barkley, all that kind of stuff. I think if there's a concern with the Eagles, if you look at it, for example, for a DVOA standpoint, I'm not going to pull up their DVOA right now, but I don't know that it would be fantastic. And the reason I say that, even though I said they're more battle-tested, they went up against the Chiefs, and even it's hard to know if Dallas is good or not. I don't know. I assume they're good because of Philly, but what if Philly's not very good? The Eagles barely beat Dallas 24-20, and then they barely beat the Chiefs 20-17. They haven't scored a lot of points in any game. Their defense has kept the other teams down quite a bit, 20-17. But I think you could borderline say, likewise, this might be a little bit more of a test. Maybe that's not entirely true. Dallas does some good stuff offensively. Kansas City typically has a potent offense. I think this is one of those things where if you shut down the Rams offense, let's say they score 20 or less points, okay, fine, check the box, defense looks real good. But I'm a little bit interested in how that goes. As for a prediction, again, we've got our models here. I wouldn't feel very comfortable about either. It's one of those things where depending on which one you look at, sometimes it's Philly, sometimes it's the Rams. The one thing I would say is, as far as the spread is concerned, I would heavily lean the Rams. None of our formulas here have Philadelphia covering the spread, although the ELO model does come close at 2.98. It's still less than. When you look at DVOA, both Regular DVOA has the Rams winning, 19.8 compared to 19.6, basically a tie, but still advantage Rams by, 0.23 points. But if you look at DVOA Dave, which again kind of is more of a filter for early season, has the Rams winning by 3.7 points, 22-18. So I'd probably stay away from it a little bit, but if I was forced to pick, it would be the Rams, not straight up, but against the spread. That would cover me if Philly wins by, 2 or something, which is obviously an option. But should be a really good game either way. Then we got Falcons, Carolina, another game with two NFC powerhouses. Just kidding. Falcons are on the road, but 5-point favorites against the Panthers, who I thought maybe we're going to have a little bit of a resurgence, but it certainly doesn't appear to be the case. Panthers are 0-2. Atlanta is 1-1. Falcons actually came very close in their Week 1 game against Tampa and then ended up beating the Vikings pretty comfortably. So the Falcons are actually looking pretty decent. Again, that assumes Tampa is a decent playoff caliber team. They lost by 3 in that game and then pummeled the Vikings 22-6. It's especially impressive considering the defense is probably considered the weak point. Obviously, some of that falls on Minnesota, but still, 6 points in the NFL is hard to pull off as a defense. Falcons are a pretty good balanced team. They got a potent running back. They've also got some serious receiver threats, solid quarterback play. Biggest shakeup for Atlanta is that Younghoe Koo, their kicker, got the boot, and they brought in this guy Romo, who seems to be doing pretty well. But Panthers it's been pretty brutal. They lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are not considered a powerhouse, 26-10, and then lost to the Cardinals 27-22. The only benefit, I guess, is that this is their first home game, so maybe they get a little bit of a bounce back. But Atlanta has to drive about 15 minutes down the road to get there, so it's not like it's across the country for them or anything. But from my perspective, certainly have Atlanta winning the game. There's maybe a little bit of temptation to pick Atlanta against the spread, but not much. The ELO model has them winning by 9. Dave has them winning by 6. DVOA has Atlanta winning by 1.6. So 5 feels about right. I think the only thing that actually is somewhat interesting about this game is to look at the total. The total is set at 44 points. And for each of these, we don't have any of them hitting 40. In fact, the closest one is Dave at 39. The others are 35, 34, and 33. So definitely predicting a lower scoring game than what Vegas is. So that'll be something to possibly monitor. Cincinnati, Minnesota is a big game for very obvious reasons. Minnesota is coming off just an appalling game. They lost their quarterback. Carson Wentz is going to step in. I still have this thought in the back of my head of watch Carson Wentz come in and just tear up the freaking league now. I know that's going to happen. Minnesota always finds a way. The worse their team is, the less we think of their team, the more they perform, right? As soon as we start thinking, maybe JJ could be good, that's when they fall apart. And then you don't believe them. Carson Wentz comes in and you're like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to suck now. Stupid freaking Carson Wentz, idiot. But it's we also play Cincinnati later this year, so that's worth keeping an eye on. I don't expect anyone to actually watch these games because the Green Bay Packers play at noon. But Minnesota is at home against Cincinnati. Vikings are 1-1 after beating the Bears and then getting freaking embarrassed by the Falcons in Week 2. Cincinnati is, first of all, coached by Zach Taylor, as we've established. But also, they are a 2-0 team. They beat the Cleveland Browns by 1 point and then beat the Jacksonville Jaguars by 4 points, neither of which are super impressive. But hey, 2-0 is 2-0. The bigger issue, they lost their quarterback. So now you go on the road to play the Minnesota Vikings, uncommon opponent, hostile environment. It's rough. Remember, the Vikings also put Aaron Jones on IR, so they're down a running back. And so it is a battle of attrition over there, and I don't know what to make of it. I would be doing a disservice to give you any kind of a prediction. I honestly have no idea. I want to say Cincinnati gets the job done, but again, I mean, Cincinnati has not looked good in their 2 wins against 2 bad opponents that they almost lost to in both cases. They lost their quarterback, again, on the road. Minnesota's defense is not, say what you want. I mean, it can be a threat, especially with a bad offensive line and a backup quarterback and all that. I mean, that stuff can get out of hand quick, and Carson Wentz is a veteran quarterback that at least can maybe move the ball. I don't know. I'm not even going to touch it other than to say I hope the Bengals win the game, and comfortably. Green Bay and Cleveland, obviously we've already covered that, so we don't need to go over the specifics and whatnot, but suffice it to say that the Green Bay Packers, let's see, has it moved? 7.5 actually, right from where I'm looking. So the needle has moved a little bit in favor of Cleveland, which actually is good because the ELO model, which is always much more volatile, you'll get big scores, and sometimes it's right, by the way. You very rarely get 15 point, 17, 20 point wins or whatever with some of the DVOA stuff. But sometimes that happens in the NFL, and sometimes ELO nails that. They have Green Bay winning 30-13. The Dave model has the Green Bay Packers winning by 8-ish points, 24-25 to 16-ish. The reason that needle moving is good is because if you have the Packers winning by 8-ish, an 8-point line is not super comfortable. If it moves to 7.5 and your most conservative estimate is an 8.5-point win, it makes it a little bit more comfortable to bet on the Green Bay Packers. I will say straight up DVOA, though, has Green Bay at a 2.7-point win. That's 17-20. So either way across the board, they have Green Bay winning. I'm actually kind of surprised DVOA straight up. It must just really like Cleveland also, because Green Bay is, according to Dave, is like the 5th best team. According to DVOA, by far the number 1 team. Also got Houston and Jacksonville, very low interest type of game. I don't know why anybody would care. Jacksonville 1-1 under that goofball Liam Cohen. I don't know why I got those letters mixed up. We've already talked about their 2 games because we've already talked about their opponents, but pummeled Carolina 26-10, lost in a close one to the Cincinnati Bengals, putting them at 1-1, now up against the Houston Texans. The Texans are 0-2 under DeMeco Ryans. They lost to the Rams and Buccaneers, definitely much tougher opponents, but not a great look. They lost 14-9 to the Rams and then 2019 to Tampa, very close game. Vegas has Jacksonville as 1-point favorites in the game. These models here have Jacksonville much more comfortably, again, aside from DVOA. I'm leaning a little bit heavier toward Dave in general, which has Jacksonville winning by 4, 21-17. ELO has Jacksonville winning by 12, so there's your big crazy score. I'd be a little wary of it, especially since 4 is not that crazy compared to 1, but depending on how bad the betting is this week, I might throw a little bit at Jacksonville. Then we got Las Vegas and Washington. This one's kind of interesting just because Washington is, presumably a playoff caliber team, but, Washington has got themselves in a bit of a bind here. Their one win came against the Giants, commanding win, but 21-6 against the Giants, and then you fall pretty comfortably to the Green Bay Packers, and then they lost their quarterback. So we'll have to see, they're going to have to try to pull off a little bit of a, I don't want to say stunner because the Raiders aren't expected to be good, but you got to try to stay alive. This could be a big opportunity for us, for other NFC teams. If Washington loses to the Raiders, it's not good for them. They are still 3-point favorites. I'm going to stay away from all my projections and whatnot simply because with the quarterback going out, that really throws everything off. But again, it's one to keep an eye on. We're certainly rooting for the Raiders to win that game. Pittsburgh and New England, another one that's really not interesting outside of the fact that we play Pittsburgh later in the year. Obviously, you got the Aaron Rodgers Pittsburgh Steelers still hanging in there, putting on some highlight reel throws out there. They're keeping it alive at 1-1, which it seems super appropriate for Mike Tomlin to be 1-1 because that's just, he'll sneak in with a winning record. But they are beat the Jets 34-32, a very, very close game, and then lost to the Seattle Seahawks very convincingly 31-17. I think overall that spells doom. We'll see how it goes, but the Jets are really not a very good team, and you allowed them to score 32 points against what should be a good defense. right? Pittsburgh's supposed to have a good defense. How do you give up 32 points to the Jets? And you think, well, maybe that's a fluke or something. Then you give up 31 points to the Seahawks. So you're averaging 31 and a half points. What happened to your defense? And then, when you're feeling good about your offense because you scored 34 points that first time, then you get a home game against the Seahawks who have to travel across the country and you only put up 17 and turn the ball over twice. So it's looking pretty bleak for the Pittsburgh Steelers unless and until they can turn that around. Mike Vrabel giving it a shot over there in New England, who was also 1-1. They fell to the Raiders, which is embarrassing, I guess, at 20-13. Who knows? Maybe Tom Brady's turning the Raiders into a powerhouse over there. You never know. But then beat the Dolphins in a relatively close game, 33-27. It's another game that's supposed to be close. Steelers are 1.5-point favorites on the road. And all these models are just all over the place, kind of 1 to 2-ish points in either direction. The ELO has Pittsburgh winning by 4. The DVOA has New England winning, but barely. So I definitely would be more inclined to stay away from this game. The only thing that, again, when you look at the total, some pretty high scores, actually, kind of across the board here. So that might be something to look into. Probably has something to do with the fact that the Steelers give up 31 points a game. And the, New England gave up 27 this past week? I don't know why we wouldn't expect it to be a high-scoring game. You look at Steelers-Patriots and think low-scoring. Indy and Tennessee is the worst thing ever. Why anybody would care, I don't know. However, the Colts are doing a thing that is very, very odd, and that is winning games and kind of consistently, and I don't understand it. I don't know if it's that dude doing the Nay song or what kind of wizardry is happening, but the Colts are 2-0 under Shane Steichen. They have the 4th highest scoring offense, the number 1 offense in terms of yards. They have a nearly top 10 offense in points, 5th in yards. They beat the Dolphins 33-8, then beat the Broncos 29-8. They are going up against the 0-2 Bill Callahan Tennessee Titans, who lost to the Broncos 20-12 and also the Rams 33-19. So, divisional matchup and all that, you never know how it's going to go. It is in Tennessee. That Broncos game for the Colts was a little bit iffy. It's still a win, but, doesn't necessarily say powerhouse. So it's a little iffy, but the Colts are 4.5-point favorites. DVOA has Indy as 1.5-point favorites. Everything else says Indy's going to blow them out of the freaking water. Dave, 10.5 points, 27-16, 17-ish. ELO has Indy winning 33-12. Jets and the Buccaneers, some relative interest there based on the Buccaneers, again, potentially being a playoff team. They are 2-0, head of the NFC South division. Very, very close wins against the Falcons and Texans. 3-point win against the Falcons, 1-point win against the Texans. So not the most encouraging. However, the New York Jets are 0-2 under Aaron Glenn. They got blown out of the water by the Buffalo Bills. Tampa Bay are 6.5-point favorites at home. And interestingly enough, although the quarterback situation for the Jets is probably going to keep me away from this, but all the betting, according to the model here, seems to lean toward Tampa Bay, but not by that margin. Cricket really wants me to bet that one. He is freaking. Like, bro, you got to do it. So, yeah, the quarterback situation I'm referring to, if you're not aware, Justin Fields is out with a concussion. Tyrod Taylor is expected to start in his place week 3. I don't know how much of an upgrade or downgrade that is, but again, it's enough to keep me away, and it's also enough for me to assume that Tampa Bay is probably going to win that game. Saints-Seahawks, I just saw it pop up. Jackson Smith and Jigba has been added to the injury report as questionable with an illness. I don't know how much that's going to matter in this matchup, but Seattle, 7-point favorites. They are at home against the Saints. Saints, as expected, are 0-2 with Kellen Moore as their head coach. They lost to the Cardinals 2013, lost to the 49ers 26-21. I suppose not complete beatings as maybe you would expect, but those were both at home. This is their first road game. It's not good. It's not expected to be good. The Saints are expected to be one of the worst teams, one of the top teams drafting in the coming draft. So I would say the general interest here is, again, Seattle is a potential threat in terms of the playoff race, so hoping for an upset here, but I don't expect one. As for the betting, again, it's right in that range, so I wouldn't really want to touch it. If I had to lean, I would lean a little bit under. In other words, New Orleans loses but covers. But again, that's just a lean. I don't know. Broncos-Chargers, pretty irrelevant, but could be an interesting game, I guess. Chargers are 3-point favorites. I would say that sounds about exactly right. In fact, Dave, which I would lean toward, has it at 2.8 points, 22-19-ish. So that is in the afternoon, so if you get stuck watching that one, at least it should be a pretty interesting game, I guess. But I don't care. Then, one of the more fun games, the Chicago Bears and the Dallas Cowboys. I'm actually kind of surprised to see that the Cowboys are just 1-point favorites against the Chicago Bears. I don't... I don't... I feel like the narrative on Chicago has been lower than it probably should be. But even from where I sit, where I'm saying, I don't think Chicago, and this is coming from me, has been as bad as maybe some of the narrative about them has been. I'm going to pile on anyways because it's funny. But even I'm a little surprised that we're talking about 1 point. 1.2. I'm guessing that Giants game weighed pretty heavily, which again, it's one of those confusing things where Philly's good, Dallas almost beat Philly, the Giants almost beat Dallas. Like, what does that mean? We don't know yet. But this is a very, very fun game because, and as I've said, it's almost a guarantee that Dallas will win because misery is what is guaranteed for Chicago Bears fans. And the fact that their former head coach went on to be the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys, and they are acutely aware of that fact. Remember, he is a very good defensive coordinator, but in the minds of Chicago Bears fans, he is the most inept pile of crap in human history. And they should be able to walk all over his defense because, again, he is the most inept pile of crap in human history. And they want to beat him so bad. Not to mention, again, Dallas is the reason the Packers have Micah Parsons. So losing to Dallas would just be, for a fan base that's already down and out and just miserable, nothing could be worse than Matt Eberflus coming back to Chicago wearing Dallas Cowboys gear and beating the crap out of your team. Not to mention, because he's on the defensive side of things, his job is to make your quarterback look like a pile of crap. If he's able to successfully do that, there's nothing worse that they can endure right now. Bears have lost their star cornerback. They've lost several people, and I don't think Dallas's offense is bad. I don't know, man. This is one where, as far as betting is concerned, and don't go taking my advice, put your house on the line, and then when you lose it, tell your wife it's my fault. Don't be doing that crap. But of all the games so far, this is the one I'm most comfortable with betting on Dallas. Now, DVOA has been extremely conservative all day, making me not want to do anything, but regular old DVOA has Dallas by 2, so that's still in favor of betting Dallas against the spread. But Dave has it at 8 points, 35-27. Elo has it an 8-point Dallas win, 29-21. It's almost tempted to bet the over, and it's set at 50, which is already pretty high. That's right where Elo has it at 50, but Dave has it at 62, and DVOA has it at 68. Probably won't touch that, but I would be tempted to bet Dallas. But who knows? Who knows? Chicago might start to get their crap together. Arizona, San Francisco, another couple NFC teams. Both of them are 2-0, so you can go ahead and consider them threats, although the Cardinals have beaten the Saints and Panthers, probably the two worst teams in football. If they had the Tennessee Titans this week, that would complete the trio. Actually, they do have the Titans coming up in a couple weeks. They have 49ers, then Seahawks, then Titans. My goodness. But 7-point win over the Saints and then a 5-point win over the Carolina Panthers. 49ers are 2-0. They beat the Seahawks 17-13. They beat the Saints 26-21. 49ers are just 2.5-point favorites. And interestingly enough, although it's very close, it's unanimous that Arizona is the favorite. So just going through all the different models here, you have 22-21, 21-20, 20-19, 19-18, and even 22-21. So all like 1-point wins by Arizona. It's very, very close either way, but interesting enough that it is unanimous in that direction. Kansas City and the Giants is just a get-right game, although Dave has the Giants winning. What? Oh, and so does DVOA. Even ELO has Kansas City winning by 2.8 points. What is the spread at? 6. Do I dare? There's no way. There's no way. This is it's tempting. I would bet people would be coming down heavy on the Chiefs in this game just because 6 points doesn't feel right. I mean, against the Giants, I might just bet the Giants out of spite just because I don't like the Chiefs. Giants are 0-2 under Brian Daboll. They did lose 21-6 against the Commanders, but remember they had that 40-37 overtime loss to the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm sure is boosting a lot of this. I don't know. I don't think I can do. I don't know. It's interesting though. If that ends up being even a close game, that'll be interesting. If the Giants can cover, just the storyline out of that Kansas City barely gets out of a game against the Giants is going to be beautiful. But I don't know, man. I think the Chiefs of old, let's put it this way, the Chiefs of old very comfortably put the Giants away by about 15 points. If they win by 7, 8, 9 even, I don't know, man. Doesn't feel like the same old Chiefs to me. Monday is Detroit and Baltimore. We could talk about it tomorrow, but I'll probably forget. Baltimore Ravens are 4.5-point favorites. That's a pretty massive game, in my opinion. If Detroit falls to 1-2, even though the opponents are tough or whatever, and they've got a relatively easy schedule after that until the Chiefs, that's rough, man. They had a big win, a big bounce back against Chicago. They're feeling good. You lose to the Green Bay Packers week 1 and then fall to the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, it's not going to be great. Also, obviously, gives us a massive cushion, assuming we beat Cleveland. Not only are we up 2 games, but we have the tiebreaker because we beat them. So, it's going to be tough for them to catch up. I mean, they're going to have to go relatively undefeated as the Packers start to fall a few games here and there, as is really their only hope as far as winning the division. And as Packer fans, we're looking at it going, can we be undefeated? And if not, maybe you lose 1 or 2 or whatever. You're one. You fall 2 within the first 3 weeks. With the Kansas City Chiefs on the road, week 6. You got Washington on the road week 10. You're on the road against Philly week 11. You got Green Bay again week 13. You got Dallas week 14. You got the Rams week 15. Those are not going to be all wins. So again, you fall 2 right out of the gate. That's, in my estimation, that is massive. On the flip side, you beat the Baltimore Ravens, which are seen by some as the top team, or certainly one of the top teams. You reestablish yourself as one of the top teams. Now it's, Detroit is the top team. Detroit is this, that, or the other. They're back in the swing of things. They're going to steamroll just the narrative and the vibes coming off of that game are going to be pretty massive. So that's one we gotta watch that game. We got to put all our juju out there and do what we can do to help Baltimore. Again, Baltimore 4.5-point favorites. Let's see, what do we got here? Across the board, Baltimore, we got winning, but it's kind of up and down across the line on whether it's to cover or not. So I guess I just wouldn't touch it. The DVOA ones are much more Baltimore, but barely. ELO has Baltimore winning by 13, so I would just leave it alone. But big time hoping for a Baltimore win. I don't care how you got to do it. I don't care if it's ugly win. I don't care if Detroit looks like the better team and Baltimore gets lucky because of some bounces or some I won't say bad calls because I'm not trying to be like that, but whatever. We need Detroit to fall to 1-2. But all right, I'm gonna get out of here. We do only have one call, so if you're wondering why there was no Packernet After Dark, I kind of told you that was going to happen. Bill in South Carolina, probably going to skip your call, bud, but if it's relevant, you can call it back in. All right, I'm out of here. You all have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
The hunter awakens. Yeah. In the shadows I lurk, yeah, I'm coming for blood. When the lights go down, I rise up from the mud. It's like I don't know what evil he's about to face. When I cross that line, leave no witness, no trace. Been watching, been waiting, been planning this kill. Every breath that he takes just feed my dark thrill. Nightmare dressed like a linebacker coming to collect. When the hunter strikes, show no mercy, no respect.
I need him. I want him. His time running out now. Time to end him.
And the reaper on the field. Hunt him down, break him down. No escape, darkness sealed. Take his soul, take his crown. It's time to collect him.
Flacco's judgment day.
The hunter shows no mercy.
Death comes out to play.
I'm the monster in your nightmares, the fear in your eyes. When you see me in your backfield, that's when your hope dies. Every sack is a statement, every hit is a scar. I'm the darkness that follows everywhere that you are. Quarterback, slay a dream, crusher, soul taker. When I wrap you up tight, I'm your personal undertaker. This is more than a game, this is psychological war. Leave you broken and beaten on that cold stadium floor. I like the name. The hunter. But I need him. I want him.
It's time to collect his soul.
The reaper on the field. Hunt him down, break him down. No escape, darkness sealed. Take his soul, take his crown. It's time to collect him. Fly.